I remember the exact second everything split in two. My body was being pushed fast down a bright hospital hallway, but my mind was wide awake. The bed rattled beneath me. Wheels squeaked. Shoes slapped the floor. Nurses spoke in short, sharp sentences that didn't leave room for questions. Someone said my name. Someone said now. Someone said move. Everything felt urgent. Everything felt serious. And then I heard her voice. Calm, steady, almost bored. My mom turned to the rest of the family and said, "Let's go back home. She'll be fine." Not a whisper. Not a mistake. Clear. Certain. Final. For a moment the noise around me faded. The rushing, the alarms, the footsteps. None of it mattered anymore. That one sentence was louder than all of it. I wanted to turn my head. I wanted to speak. I wanted to ask her how she could be so sure. This wasn't a stranger talking. This wasn't someone who didn't know me. This was my mother. The doors started to close. The hallway disappeared. And as I was taken one way, my family walked the other. So I keep asking myself the same question even now. How does a parent decide you're already fine when doctors are running? That day wasn't supposed to be serious. It started like any other day. No panic. No big warning signs. No feeling that something bad was coming. I woke up, moved around, did normal things and told myself everything was fine. At first it was just discomfort. The kind you ignore. The kind you push through because you don't want to be dramatic. I thought it would pass if I rested, if I drank water, if I waited a little longer. I told my mom how I was feeling. She listened then brushed it off. "You're fine," she said. "It's nothing." I believed her. She was my mom. She'd always been the one who decided what was serious and what wasn't. If she wasn't worried, I didn't think I needed to be either. So I tried to act normal. I tried to keep going. But the pain didn't fade. It grew slowly at first. A deeper ache. A tighter feeling. Something that didn't feel right even if I couldn't explain it. I remember sitting still and realizing my body felt heavier than it should. Breathing took more effort. Thinking felt harder. Then it changed. What had been quiet suddenly became loud. The pain sharpened. My body started reacting on its own. My hands felt strange. My head spun. That was the moment I knew this wasn't nothing. I didn't need anyone to tell me anymore. My body already by the time we reached the hospital, the air felt different. The pain wasn't something I could hide anymore. It wasn't something I could talk through. Every small movement made it worse. I tried to stay calm, but my body kept betraying me. At first, even there, it felt slow. Forms. Questions. Waiting. I remember thinking maybe my mom was right. Maybe this was still just something small that looked bigger than it was. Then the tone changed. A nurse stopped smiling. Another one asked the same question twice. Someone checked something again, then called for someone else. Voices dropped, then rose. Words like now and quickly started floating through the room. I watched their faces more than I listened to their words. That's how I knew. They weren't relaxed anymore. My mom stood nearby, arms crossed, telling everyone to calm down. She kept saying I was okay. That I always worried too much. That this didn't need all this fuss. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But my body had already crossed a line my mind couldn't ignore. My chest felt tight. The pain spread in a way that made me afraid to close my eyes. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. Then one doctor spoke clearly and firmly. No softness. No comfort. Just facts. That's when I realized this wasn't up for debate anymore. Something was wrong. I didn't hear the sentence right away. At first, it blended into the noise around me. The movement. The talking. The rush. But then it landed heavy and clear and everything else fell silent. My mom said it like it was a small decision. Like choosing what to eat for dinner. "Let's go back home. She'll be fine." She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't lower her voice. There was no fear in it. No doubt. Just certainty. For a second I wondered if I had heard her wrong. Doctors were moving faster. A nurse was already pushing my bed. Someone was holding paperwork. Someone else was calling out instructions. Nothing about the room said fine. But my mom did. I lay there, unable to move, unable to speak, staring at the ceiling while those words echoed in my head. They didn't match what my body was feeling. They didn't match what was happening around me. And that hurt more than the pain. This wasn't a stranger being careless. This wasn't someone who didn't know me. This was the person who was supposed to worry the most. As the bed rolled forward and the doors came closer, I realized something I wasn't ready to accept yet. In that moment she had already decided I would be okay. Whether I was or not. They didn't even hesitate. As the nurses started moving me away, I saw my family turn in the opposite direction. No rushing. No arguing. No one stopping to ask questions. It felt planned, like they already knew what they were going to do. They were leaving. I wanted to call out. I wanted to ask someone, anyone, to stay. But my body wouldn't cooperate. My throat felt tight. My hands felt weak. All I could do was watch. The distance between us grew with every step. I caught one last glimpse of my mom's back as she walked away. She didn't turn around. She didn't look worried. She didn't look unsure. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just being taken into surgery. I was being left behind. The hallway grew quieter. The people around me were strangers now. Kind strangers, but strangers all the same. They spoke gently, but they didn't know me. They didn't know who I was waiting for. The doors closed behind us, cutting off the last bit of familiar noise. I was alone. Not because no one was there, but because the people who should have been there chose not to stay. They moved me into a colder room. The lights were brighter there. The air felt sharp against my skin. Everything looked clean and empty at the same time. People spoke to me, but their voices felt far away, like they were coming from another place. A nurse asked me questions. My name. My age. What I was feeling. I answered as best as I could, even though my thoughts kept drifting back to the hallway. I kept waiting for someone to walk in. Anyone. My mom. A family member. A familiar face. But no one came. The door stayed closed. Time stretched in a strange way. Seconds felt too long. Minutes disappeared. They started preparing me. Patching things. Adjusting things. Explaining things I barely understood. I nodded even when I didn't feel ready. That's when fear settled in. Not loud fear. Quiet fear. The kind that sits in your chest and doesn't move. The kind that makes you realize how small you are in that moment. I stared up at the ceiling and tried to steady my breathing. This was really happening. And I was facing it alone. Right before they gave me the anesthesia, everything slowed down. The room was quiet in a careful way. Voices were softer. Movements were slower. Someone told me to take a deep breath. I did, even though my chest felt tight. I stared at the ceiling lights and tried to focus on something simple. Anything that would keep my mind from running too far ahead. That's when my thoughts drifted. I thought about being a child and believing that parents always stay. That no matter how bad things get, they don't leave. I thought about how safe that belief once felt. I wondered when that belief started to crack. I told myself to be strong. I told myself I would wake up. I told myself I didn't need anyone, even though a part of me still hoped someone was waiting on the other side of those doors. My eyes felt heavy. My body felt warmer than lighter. The last thing I remember thinking was simple and quiet. If I wake up, I'll never forget this feeling. And then everything went dark. When I woke up, I didn't know where I was at first. My body felt heavy, like it didn't fully belong to me yet. There was a dull pain, deep and constant, and a strange fog in my head. I blinked a few times, trying to understand the shapes and sounds around me. Machines were beeping softly. Someone was speaking nearby, but not to me. I turned my head slowly, expecting to see a familiar face. I didn't. No one from my family was there. No hand to hold. No voice asking if I was okay. Just a nurse checking monitors and writing things down. She noticed I was awake and spoke gently. She told me the surgery was over. She told me it had been more serious than they first thought. She told me I was lucky they acted when they did. Lucky. The word sat heavy in my mind. As she spoke, I realized something that hurt more than the incision, more than the weakness in my body. While I was being opened up and put back together, the people who said I'd be fine weren't even there to see if I was. I closed my eyes again, not from sleep this time, but from the weight of understanding. I had survived. But I had done it on my quietest, loneliest strength. When my family finally returned, it felt like I was seeing them for the first time. They walked in casually, talking quietly amongst themselves as if nothing serious had happened. My heart was still racing, my body still sore, but they acted like everything was normal. My mom looked at me and smiled faintly, like she had expected this all along. There was no apology. No worry. No acknowledgement of the fear I had just gone through. Just the same calm certainty she had shown before I went into surgery. I tried to speak, to tell them how scared I had been, how alone it felt, but the words got caught in my throat. They listened, but only half-heartedly. They didn't seem to grasp the distance between what I had experienced and what they believed had happened. I realized then that their idea of fine was different from mine. What mattered to them wasn't how I felt. It was how the situation reflected on them. I had expected comfort. I had expected presence. Instead I got dismissal. It was a quiet kind of hurt, the kind that doesn't shout but settles in your chest. The kind that makes you understand something crucial. Sometimes the people who should protect you the most are the ones who leave you to face it alone. And in that moment, I decided I would never rely on someone else's definition of care again. That was the moment I stopped trying to explain myself. I realized that no matter how much I told them what I felt, no matter how clearly I described the fear, the pain, or the terror, it wouldn't change how they saw it. They had already decided the story, and I wasn't part of it. I turned inward. I focused on my own strength, on the body that had carried me through the surgery and the fear, on the quiet courage I hadn't known I had until that day. I let go of needing validation, of needing them to understand. It was painful, yes, and lonely, but it was also freeing. I didn't have to wait for anyone to show up. I didn't have to prove my fear or my pain. I didn't have to justify my feelings anymore. For the first time, I understood that love isn't always about words or gestures. Sometimes it's about presence. And sometimes, absence speaks louder than anything else. I made a promise to myself that day. I would take care of myself first, because no one else could be counted on to do it when it mattered most. And with that thought, something inside me shifted. I wasn't broken. I was awake. I was aware. And I was ready to face the world on my own terms. That day taught me a painful truth. Love isn't always shown. Presence matters more than words. I realized I couldn't rely on others to protect me. From that moment, I chose to trust myself and no one else. I survived the surgery, but waking up brought a new truth. Trust can break faster than the body can heal. My family wasn't there when I needed them most. Their absence stung, but it also revealed a quiet strength inside me I hadn't known existed. I realized I could rely only on myself, that my courage, my resilience, and my heart were enough. Pain taught me clarity. Fear taught me self-reliance. And though scars remain, both seen and unseen, I walk forward knowing that survival isn't just about being alive. It's about standing strong even when no one else stays.